Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Combating Cancer. My name is Gwen Kelly, and I'm your host. If this is your first time listening, I just want to say welcome, truly, and thank you so much for being here. Whether you found this podcast on your own or someone you love shared it with you, I'm really glad you're here. For those who are new, a little background on me. I was diagnosed with stage 3 astrocytoma brain cancer at the age of 19. I created Combating Cancer because I wanted a safe, honest space for people who are in active treatment, in remission, grieving the loss of a loved one, or supporting someone they care about as a caregiver. Cancer is an incredibly isolating disease, and no one should feel like they have to navigate it alone. Today's episode is one I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time, and that is dating with cancer. Before I dive in, I want to say this up front. I'm currently in a very healthy, loving relationship with my boyfriend, Jake. He's probably very excited about this official shout out. But it did not always look like this. And for a long time, I didn't believe something like this was possible for me. That's really the reason why I wanted to share this today. I was diagnosed at 19, and I always joke that I should have been worried about finals, friend drama, and who my next boyfriend was going to be, not fighting for my life or staring death in the face. And yet, even while I was going through treatment, I still wanted to live. I still wanted to date. I still wanted to pursue school, work, friendships, and relationships. I wanted to feel normal again. I wanted to do what normal 19-year-olds do. And that want came with so much guilt. There was this underlying belief that wanting love while having cancer somehow made me selfish, unrealistic, or naive. Like I should have been grateful just to survive and not ask for anything more. But that's not true. Wanting connection doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Dating with cancer, though, brings up questions no one prepares you for. When do I tell them? How much do I share? Do I say it on the first date? Do I wait? Am I being dishonest if I don't say it right away? Am I asking too much if I do? I remember genuinely spiraling before dates thinking, do I just lead with it? Like, hi, I'm Gwen, nice to meet you. And before we order food, I should probably tell you that I have stage 3 brain cancer. And obviously that's not how dating works. But when you're sick, everything feels high stakes. Every decision feels like it could change the outcome. For a while, I didn't tell people right away. Sometimes it was 3 or 4 dates in, and I don't regret that. I didn't want to hand over my entire life story, my trauma, my fears, my medical history to someone I wasn't even sure I wanted a second date with. You guys are the exception, though. I started this platform because I kind of wanted to gossip about all this. And, I always joke about not dropping all the lore on the first date, but it's true. My story is valuable. My trauma is not small talk, and you are allowed to decide when someone earns access to that part of you. But every time I did tell someone, I was so terrified. I had fully convinced myself that the moment the word cancer came out of my mouth, everything would change, that I would no longer be seen as Gwen, someone who's driven, loving, funny, but as the girl with cancer, a burden, too much, too complicated. And here's what surprised me the most. That reaction never came. People didn't boo me off the stage. They didn't recoil. They didn't disappear. Instead, I heard things like, what you've been through is incredibly hard and it doesn't change how I see you. Or, I really think you're so strong. Thank you for telling me that. And that forced me to confront something uncomfortable. The harshest judgment was coming from me. At 19, I didn't know many people my age with cancer, especially people who weren't already married or in long-term relationships. And I remember wishing someone would just sit me down and say, here's what's okay. Here's what you're allowed to want. Here's what dating with cancer actually looks like. So here's the advice I wish I had been given. First, how someone reacts to your cancer tells you everything you need to know about their emotional maturity. Not everyone is equipped to handle illness, uncertainty, or fear, and that doesn't make them bad people, but it does mean they are not your people. Cancer accelerates clarity, and while that can hurt, it can also save you. Second, you do not owe anyone your trauma immediately. Sharing your diagnosis is not a test you have to pass. There is no right timeline, only what feels safe and honest to you. But when you do share, you got to pay attention. Words matter, but actions matter more. Because I've dated people who meant well, but were emotionally immature when it came to illness. I once had a breast cancer scare and someone showed up with pink merch and support, even though I didn't even have breast cancer. Like, the right color would have been gray for Brain Cancer Awareness Month, but that's a whole nother thing. And that moment told me everything I need to know, not about their intentions, but about their ability to sit in fear with me. Third, you got to be honest about what dating you actually looks like. For me, that meant explaining scanxiety. As most of my returning listeners know, I go in for scans every 90 days, and the weeks leading up to them are brutal. I spiral, I overthink, I withdraw, I become irritable, snappy, and honestly, not very pleasant to be around. Scanxiety doesn't make you inspirational. It makes you scared, and there is no amount of warning that can fully prepare someone for it. You can explain it, but at some point, they have to just experience it for themselves and choose to stay. When I first went through scans with Jake, afterwards he joked and said, "Okay, you were not lying. You really are a lot during scan time." And, we laughed, but then the next round of scans came, and that's when they found a lesion. I'd never been in a relationship where my scans weren't good, and immediately my mind went to the worst place, not just medically, but relationally. I thought, this is it. This is where it becomes too much. This is where someone leaves. This is where all the fears I had about dating with cancer come out. And around that time, there was a moment I will never forget. My dad, one of our close friends, Corey, and Jake literally pulled aside and formed what I can only describe as a football huddle. My dad looked at Jake and said, "These next 30 days are going to be hard. You need to uplift her mentally, physically, and spiritually. She's going to push back. She's going to be scared. But this is when you lock in." And Jake didn't back down. He showed up completely. When I cried and asked, why is this happening again? When I thought I had made it through the hardest part, he didn't sit there and try to fix me. He fed me when I didn't want to eat. He got me to the gym when I was shutting down. He sat with me. He prayed with me. He reminded me over and over again that I wasn't doing this alone. And that experience taught me something I wish I had known much earlier. The right relationship doesn't make cancer disappear, but it makes it lighter to carry. And that's why I wanted to share this episode, because I know there are people listening, especially younger listeners, who are single and silently wondering if cancer disqualified them from being chosen. I know there are people who believe their life is too heavy, their future too uncertain, their story too much. And I need you to hear this. You are not too much. You are not a burden. And you did not lose your right to love because you got sick. Yes, there will be people who cannot handle it. And that's okay. That doesn't make you unlovable. It makes them not your person. But there will be someone who steps into your corner alongside your family and friends and says, "I'm all in." Cancer doesn't make you harder to love. It reveals who knows how to love deeply. So, after my rambling and giving advice to my 19-year-old self, that is the end of today's episode. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And as always, if you would like to come on the podcast or have a business inquiry or just want to reach out for any reason, my door is always open. So thank you for listening to Combating Cancer, and I will talk to you all next Wednesday.